Samantha rubbed her irritated, puffy eyes, another casualty of a sleepless night, and winced. She felt awful. There was a sharp twinge in her side, a headache brewing just behind her temples, and the cold water splash that usually jolted her awake had done absolutely nothing today. Sighing and feeling sorry for herself, Samantha walked over to the window. The weather matched her mood. It was late March, supposedly springtime. Birds should have been singing, the sun shining, and the tree branches gently blushing green with fresh buds. But clearly, spring had lost its way. Outside, the wind howled like it was still the dead of winter. Thick snow, which had appeared out of nowhere, was now ruthlessly covering the bright green patches of grass that had only just peeked through. Not exactly the kind of scene that lifts your spirits. Only one hope remained, her favorite morning ritual. Unlike most people she knew, Samantha didn't drink coffee. She didn't get the appeal and had no interest in pretending that drinking something so bitter brought her any joy. Her drink of choice was tea, specifically green tea. She loved everything about it, the subtle fragrance, the calming process of making it, even the warm, familiar mug in her hands. A cup of green tea with lemon, cinnamon, and ginger always helped her reset, no matter how rough the morning. So, she reached into the kitchen cabinet for her supplies. Her first disappointment hit when she remembered that she'd used the last lemon yesterday. Oh well, not the end of the world. I can manage without lemon, she told herself with forced optimism and reached for the large, brightly painted tin decorated with exotic flowers, her treasure chest of tea. But the moment she opened it and looked inside, she knew her morning was officially cursed. A couple of sad pinches of tea dust rolled around at the bottom. Not enough to make even half a cup. And tea without tea. That just wasn't going to happen. With a frustrated sigh, Samantha set the tin aside. The day was off to a miserable start. As if to prove the point, the confused weather outside hurled another burst of snow against the window. The glass shuddered in the wind and immediately fogged over from the melting flakes. Well, at least I don't have to go to work today, she thought, but the comfort was fleeting. The moment she remembered why she wasn't rushing around the house as usual, checking the time, darting between the mirror and the stove, and throwing her phone charger, wallet and 100 other little things into her bag, her mood sank even lower. Even her 8-year-old daughter Mia, who normally added her own brand of chaos to the morning madness, wasn't underfoot today. The quiet was unsettling. No Mia pretending to brush her teeth, no familiar morning whine like, "Oh, Mom. I forgot, today we have PE instead of shop class. They said to bring shorts and a white t-shirt. And I don't have any clean socks." "Mia," Samantha would say, frantically digging through the closet, "how many times have I asked you? Please tell me these things the night before, not 5 minutes before I walk out the door." Mia would usually just shrug and, as if she'd only just remembered, casually toss in something like, "Oh, by the way, Mom, I need to bring $35 to school today. We're going to the Science Museum tomorrow. When's the deadline?" Samantha would ask, already bracing for the answer. "Today," Mia would reply cheerfully. "Today's the last day." "Mia." Samantha would groan, hopelessly digging through her wallet, which, after that, was practically guaranteed to be left behind on the kitchen table. "I don't have any cash on me. Why didn't you tell me this yesterday?" Mia would put on her most innocent face, sniff a little, and calmly say, "Mom, your eggs are burning." After those kinds of emotional roller coasters, Samantha would arrive at work wide awake, fully alert, and ready for anything. But today, it was quiet. The source of all that usual morning chaos was still in bed, having only just fallen asleep near dawn. Mia hardly ever got sick, but when she did, it hit her fast and hard. One minute she was fine, the next she'd be flat out with a high fever. Always sudden. Always intense. That's exactly how it happened this time. Mia came back from practice, full of energy, in a good mood, wolfed down her dinner, then sat down to do her homework like everything was normal. When Samantha got home from work, she immediately noticed how unusually quiet the apartment was. She walked into Mia's room, and felt the heat radiating from her daughter even before her hand touched her forehead. One quick check was enough. Feverish, glassy eyes, flushed cheeks, and a completely stuffed nose. There was no doubt, Mia was sick. And not just a little sick, but all in one go kind of sick, with every symptom showing up at once. They spent the whole night battling the fever. Finally, in the early morning hours, Mia managed to fall asleep, and Samantha made her way into the kitchen just as the pale gray light of dawn started to creep through the window. Well, she said to herself, stubbornly clinging to her usual optimism, at least I don't have to go out in that weather to get to work. That same optimism, the one that always helped her see some sliver of good in even the worst situations, kicked in again. She jotted down a quick shopping list, meds, groceries, and the word TEA in all caps, threw on some clothes, and peeked into Mia's room. To her surprise, Mia was already awake, lying on the bed with her blanket kicked off and breathing heavily through her blocked nose. "Mia, how are you feeling?" Samantha asked in that hushed, gentle tone people always seem to use when speaking to the sick. "I'm okay," Mia replied, nasal but calm. Samantha studied her daughter's face. Honestly, she did look a bit better. The flushed cheeks were gone, and her breathing had softened. But then came that familiar ache in her chest, the one that always showed up when she was reminded just how much Mia looked like Kevin. The eyes, the way she raised one eyebrow, the shape of her mouth, the wild, wavy hair that refused to be tamed, they were all Kevin. Kevin, who had vanished from their lives 2 months ago. Samantha slipped into that heavy fog of sadness again, until Mia tugged on her sleeve. "Mom. Hello. You're totally zoning out. What did you want?" "Right," Samantha snapped back to the moment. "Okay, here's the thing. We don't even have tea in the house, and I've got nothing to help your throat. I'm gonna run to the store and the pharmacy, alright? You stay in bed, I'll lock the door, okay?" She walked over and pressed her palm to Mia's slightly damp forehead. Mia nodded, staring straight ahead with a serious look on her face. Samantha shut the door gently behind her and hurried down the stairs. Samantha Blake had been running her whole life, literally. As soon as she figured out how to use her legs, little Samantha took a few wobbly steps and immediately tried to take off. Her body, still new to the idea, didn't quite cooperate, and she tumbled to the floor. But there was no time for tears. She quickly got back up and kept trying. Even at that young age, she had plenty of determination and drive. Within a month, she was zipping around the apartment, knocking over anything that hadn't been cleared out of her path in time. The apartment walls couldn't contain her energy, but luckily, summer arrived, and her parents took her out to the countryside. "We should strap a pedometer to Samantha," her mom laughed. "I wonder how many miles she runs in a day." "At least we don't have to pave any garden paths," her grandmother replied. "She'll wear them down for us." And she was right. By the end of the summer, Samantha had stomped the garden trails flat as asphalt. Not a single blade of grass stood a chance. In school, Samantha's favorite part of PE was, of course, running, any distance, any time. She never thought much of her school records. The fact that she easily outran all her classmates, boys included, she chalked up to the boys being weak and slow, not to any special talent of her own. "Wait a second," a man once stopped her in the hallway. "Are you Samantha from 5th grade? Your PE teacher told me about you. Want to take sports a bit more seriously? What would I have to do?" Samantha asked, tilting her head, eyeing him curiously. "Well, basically what you're already doing," he said with a grin. "Just run. More often. And faster." And that's how Samantha ended up in track and field. It was the perfect outlet for her endless energy. By the time she was 14, she was already a candidate for the Master of Sport title. At 16, after winning a youth championship, she officially earned it. Let her run, her dad would joke about her passion. It'll keep her fit. And it's a cheap sport, just need a t-shirt, some shorts, and sneakers. Perfect. He'd burst out laughing. My buddy's kid plays hockey, and they're drowning in gear loans. So run, Samantha, run. In reality, the expenses turned out to be a bit more than he'd guessed. But money was never an issue for their family. Her father ran a small but successful business, was financially stable, and more than capable of giving his only daughter everything she needed. Well, Blake, her coach once said, an honest-to-a-fault man known for his bluntness, you're probably not going to be a world champion. But at the regional level, you've got plenty of running left in you. Of course I do. Samantha smiled, 16 and carefree. Samantha was pretty happy with how things were going. For one, being a sports star came with its perks. Teachers tended to go easier on her when it came to the occasional bad grade in subjects like math or chemistry, which she never liked or really understood anyway. Second, as long as she was busy with something serious, aka training, her parents were convinced she didn't have time for anything foolish. That belief kept them from hovering over her too much and gave her a decent amount of freedom. And third, her athletic success definitely boosted her popularity at school, which, let's be honest, felt pretty great. Even though Samantha had been studying at a boarding school for athletes for a while, whenever she came home, she couldn't help but notice the way the local boys looked at her, or how the girls looked at her too, but with a touch of envy. She had the kind of figure that came with serious track training, long, toned legs, slim muscular hips, a defined core, and her tall frame made her stand out in any crowd. Even among her teammates, Samantha was hard to miss. Her legs really were something, long, always tanned, and somehow graceful in a way that made it seem like they barely touched the ground when she ran. Her thick, light blonde hair was usually tied back in a ponytail or messy bun, but when she let it down, it fell across her shoulders in glossy waves. For some of the other girls, that was where the compliments stopped. So what's the big deal, anyway, grumbled one teammate, annoyed after yet another guy, one she liked, seemed more interested in Samantha. She's got stork legs. And that hair's always sticking out like a scarecrow. Don't be like that, another girl said with a shrug, one who wasn't in competition with Samantha and had a more honest take. Her hair's gorgeous. And she's beautiful, let's not kid ourselves. Beautiful, the first one scoffed. Let's see how beautiful she is when her face breaks out like the rest of us. But even there, Samantha got lucky. Despite being smack in the middle of puberty, her skin stayed clear. That flawless matte glow and the soft, almost porcelain-like blush on her cheeks drove the jealous ones crazy. Somehow, even after running a full 1500-meter race, Samantha still looked good at the finish line, unlike the rest of the girls who'd be red-faced, gasping for air, hair all over the place, with sweat dripping and noses running. Naturally, Samantha had a lot of admirers, including plenty of guys from the athletic training groups who practiced on the same track, traveled to the same competitions, lived in the neighboring dorms, went to the same school, and basically shared most aspects of life with the girls. Her easygoing personality made her popular not just as an athlete but as a friend. She was always upbeat, loved to joke around, and had a light, teasing humor that people liked being around. Of course, while many saw her as a great buddy, there were definitely a few who were hoping for something more. Among all of Samantha's admirers, one guy stood out the most, Kevin. He was part of the shot put team. He wasn't exactly a star athlete, more of a solid middle-of-the-pack type, but there was one thing he absolutely excelled at, sheer effort. Kevin trained harder and longer than anyone else, almost like he was trying to make up for his lack of natural talent through sheer determination and grit. And in sports, persistence can mean just as much as talent. Any time he wasn't training, Kevin devoted, almost obsessively, to pursuing Samantha. Or trying to, anyway. He ignored every sign that she wasn't interested and kept at it, bringing her flowers and little gifts, waiting for her after practice, or just sitting in the stands watching her train, his stare intense enough to make her uncomfortable. He clearly meant well, but he was so awkward and heavy-handed about it that it made things awkward not just for Samantha, but for everyone around them. To her credit, Samantha tried to be honest with him, more than once. She did her best to make it clear there was no chance of anything happening between them. But Kevin had this stubborn, silent determination that nothing seemed to break. Every day, there he was, broad-shouldered and stocky, with blonde hair that always stuck out in every direction, a tight-lipped expression, and those focused eyes under uneven brows, one always raised just a little higher than the other. That off-balance look gave his otherwise gruff face a slightly comical touch, softening the seriousness he always seemed to carry. Still, even if there was something vaguely endearing about him, Samantha just didn't like him. Especially not his relentless persistence, which drove her crazy. "So what do you expect?" her friend Abby laughed after hearing Samantha complain, again, about her hopeless suitor. "He's heavy in every sense of the word. Just like that shot put he's always throwing. Honestly, I think his head is made of the same stuff." Samantha avoided Kevin as much as she could, but he seemed dead set on winning her over no matter what. At their next track meet, both coaches and athletes treated it as a kind of checkpoint, to decide who would keep training seriously and who wouldn't. Samantha, who had just turned 18 a few months before, put in a solid performance. It was good, but not spectacular. And the truth was, neither she nor her coaches really believed she had it in her to push that result much further. So they made a mutual decision: Samantha was done with professional training. True to form, she took the news with her usual good humor. They threw a little farewell party right there at the stadium, the place that had been the center of her world for so many years. The whole crew, guys and girls, joked around, devoured pizza they were usually forbidden to eat, set up mock competitions, and playfully teased each other non-stop. It was loud. It was chaotic. And it was a whole lot of fun. And then, in the middle of all the noise and fun, Samantha felt something strange, like something was missing. It was as if her beloved, familiar to the last detail stadium suddenly had a chunk of the bleachers gone. A little while later, it hit her. She was missing that ever-present, intense stare from under the messy blonde bangs. "Hey, Abby, do you know where, the shot put guy is?" she asked her friend, who knew all about her drama with Kevin and had often helped her dodge his clingy advances. "Missing him already?" Abby burst out laughing. "I don't know. Maybe he finally gave up and went off to find someone new." "No, Abby, I'm serious." Samantha felt a strange twinge of worry. "I mean, literally everyone's here today. Even the shot put guys showed up. Except him. Don't you think that's kind of weird? What if something happened?" "Oh, come on, what could have happened to him?" Abby clearly didn't understand Samantha's sudden concern for the guy she'd been avoiding for ages. "Can you even picture him having fun with everyone? What would he even be doing here? The guy probably doesn't even know how to smile." Abby's logic made sense. Samantha nodded, half convinced, and tried to focus on other things, but that uneasy feeling just kept tugging at her somewhere deep inside. Eventually, she couldn't take it anymore. She dropped her half-packed things and set off to find Kevin somewhere on the massive training complex. Seriously? Who would have thought, she muttered to herself as she wandered from the track to the gym, peeking into every room where he might be. Now I'm the one chasing him around. This is ridiculous. Where did he even go? She started asking people she passed if they'd seen Kevin, the shot putter, and finally ended up at the athletes' dorms. "Oh, look who it is. The light of my life," shouted a tall, lean guy with laughing gray eyes as he walked out to meet her. "Has the queen finally descended from her throne?" "Cyrus, stop it." Samantha laughed. "Why are you yelling like that? Listen, can you just tell me, have you seen, that guy, the shot putter, Kevin?" "Your gloomy night?" Cyrus asked without a hint of shame. "What, he finally wore you down? You gave in?" And what about me and my shattered heart, traitor? Oh, knock it off. Samantha laughed out loud. I just need to talk to him. And he's nowhere to be found. That's all. He's probably in his room. Where else would he be? If he's not training or staring at you, the guy just sits on his bed all day. Though, now yeah, guess that's over. What do you mean? Samantha asked, surprised. Well, that's it. He didn't make the cut. He won't be moving up past the second junior rank, and he's about to age out of the youth category anyway, Cyrus said with a shrug. You didn't see the dropout list? Come on, Samantha. Hey, while you're here, can I get your number? Just saying, life without you might be too much to bear. Cyrus kept joking, but Samantha had gone quiet, thinking. So Kevin had been cut from the team, too. And judging by the fact that he didn't even show up to their little celebration, he must have taken it hard. Really hard. She herself had taken the news about being cut from the team exactly as expected, calmly, even philosophically. Her coach's blunt but honest comment about her limited future in sports, combined with her naturally easygoing personality, had actually worked in her favor. Unlike most young athletes, the end of her athletic career wasn't a tragedy for Samantha. Life without sports still seemed full of promise and adventure. To be honest, she'd already been thinking about quitting for a while, about finishing school properly and finally considering the future. Maybe even choosing a profession. But Kevin clearly didn't see it the same way. And suddenly, she felt a deep pang of sympathy for him. The poor guy didn't even have any real friends to lean on. And with a personality like his, people didn't exactly line up to check in on him. Hey, Cyrus, she said, cutting through his cheerful rambling, have you actually seen him today? I mean Kevin. Why would I? Cyrus shrugged. Told you, he's probably holed up in his room packing. The guy's got a ton of stuff. He's from some tiny town, so he brings his whole life with him. Anyway, I gotta run. Kisses. Wait, what room is he in? She managed to ask before he took off. Cyrus shouted the number over his shoulder, and Samantha headed up the stairs to the second floor. She paused outside the door and listened. Silence. This is so stupid, she muttered, annoyed at herself. What am I even doing here? Getting all worked up over some dumb feeling. She turned to leave, but then heard something. A small sound, like someone quietly choking back a sob. Samantha froze, then stepped closer to the door. Hey, is someone in there? She asked, placing her hand on the doorknob. Hey, open up, do you hear me? Kevin, it's Samantha. I know you're in there. Please open the door. Kevin, come on. Open the door. Please. Right now. Kevin, please, just open it. She started out calm and gentle, but with every word her voice grew louder, more frantic, more urgent. By the end, she was yelling, stumbling over her words, panic building inside her with every second. Something felt wrong. Terribly wrong. It was like something awful, something irreversible, was happening just a few feet away, on the other side of that thin dorm room door. The fear was rising in her chest like a tidal wave, and she couldn't stop herself. She yanked at the handle with one hand and pounded on the door with the other. Open this door now or I'll get help, do you hear me? We'll break it down. And then suddenly, the door opened, and it felt like the floor dropped out from under her. She would have fallen straight to the ground if strong arms hadn't caught her. Kevin stood there. He had finally opened the door, and the moment she saw him, Samantha realized just how much he'd changed since the last time she saw him. He'd lost a lot of weight. There were dark circles under his eyes, and his face looked pale and lifeless, almost as if it had been dusted with ash. His usually broad, straight shoulders were hunched now, making his whole body seem awkward and small. Hey, hi, Samantha finally said. I was knocking and knocking. Why didn't you open up? Kevin looked at her with an odd kind of detachment, saying nothing. Samantha thought at the very least he'd be surprised to see her at his door, but he didn't even flinch. We had a party at the stadium, she continued, trying to keep the tone light. And when I saw you weren't there, I figured I'd come find out where you were. She felt incredibly awkward, cursing her impulsive nature that had brought her here, and was struggling to figure out how to make a graceful exit. Kevin remained silent and sullen. Clearly, he wasn't going to help her out of the uncomfortable moment. So, how are you? Samantha blurted out, then instantly regretted it. Given the situation, it sounded almost like a cruel joke. Kevin seemed to think so too. Oh, just great, he said at last, his voice dripping with bitter sarcasm. Never better. I'm actually trying to figure out how to celebrate all my success. Just weighing my options. What do you mean? Samantha asked, suddenly alert. What kind of options? Kevin, come on, I can see you're upset, but seriously, it's not the end of the world. You'll be okay. 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 Kevin's face turned pale, and his eyes narrowed into slits. He clenched his fists and suddenly yelled. Maybe for you it will be okay. But for me, it's over, everything, do you get it? There's nothing left to do, nothing left to dream about, nothing to work toward. It's over. So why don't you just go, Samantha Blake, and close the door behind you? Tight. He turned away from her, and somehow that hit her harder than the shouting. His slumped shoulders, the way his arms hung limp at his sides, his entire posture radiated pure hopelessness. It tightened something in her chest. She tiptoed up to him and gently touched his shoulder. He flinched, turned abruptly, and then grabbed her hands, pressing his face against them. Kevin was shaking. This huge guy, probably around 200 pounds, built like a wall with strong arms and a broad chest, was crying. Really crying. Like a 5-year-old whose favorite toy had just been snatched away in the sandbox. Tears streamed down his face, warm against her palms where he held them tight. Samantha froze, completely lost, her eyes darting around the room like someone looking for an emergency exit. What was she supposed to do with this giant sobbing child of a man? Kevin, hey, she said gently, trying to bring him back, come on, let's sit down, okay? You need to calm down. We can talk. He lifted his tear-streaked face. His eyes were red, lashes clumped together from crying. And for the first time, Samantha noticed just how ridiculously long his eyelashes were. How had she, or any of the girls, never noticed that before? Okay. Can we talk now? She asked again, brushing away the silly urge to reach out and touch those lashes just to see if they were real. He nodded, took a deep breath, and suddenly collapsed. Samantha gasped, staring in shock as Kevin curled onto his side, clutching his stomach with both hands. His face was quickly draining of color, and his breathing was ragged, strained, like every inhale was a battle. His whole body began to tremble with violent spasms. Kevin! Oh my God, what's happening? She shouted, dropping to her knees beside him. He was in obvious pain, his eyes darting around aimlessly, unable to focus. His breathing had become so shallow she could barely hear it. His body kept seizing up. With shaking fingers, Samantha dialed emergency services. While waiting for the ambulance, desperate to keep herself together, she stood up and looked around the room. It was a mess, the usual kind when someone's suddenly packing in a rush. Then something caught her eye, a torn-open pill packet lying on the windowsill. She stepped closer, moved a magazine aside, and found several more. All of them empty. All of them the same. A terrifying thought flashed through Samantha's mind. It hit her like a bolt of lightning, and horrified her. She dropped to her knees beside Kevin again. Kevin, honey, did you take them? She asked, her voice trembling with fear. He moved his eyes slightly and gave the faintest nod. You idiot, she whispered, then quickly grabbed a water bottle and shoved it into his hands. "Drink, please, Kevin, I'm begging you. You have to drink this, okay? Please." He managed a few big gulps. Then, clumsily, he pushed himself up onto his knees and then his shaky legs, only to immediately lose balance. She jumped up, caught him, and gently lowered him to the floor. Taking a closer look at him, she quickly grabbed a small sports trophy nearby, one that Kevin had clearly won himself, and held it under his chin just in time. He leaned over it, body racked with spasms. When it was over, drained and trembling, he lay on his side and closed his eyes. A few minutes later, a medic rushed into the room and knelt down beside Kevin. Samantha met him halfway. "Excuse me," she said quickly, holding out her palm with the empty pill packs. "Ha! Odd choice," the medic muttered with a crooked smile. "Yeah, that's poisoning, no doubt, but I think he'll be okay." He administered an injection and placed an oxygen mask over Kevin's face. "Was this over you?" he asked suddenly. "What?" Samantha stared at him, not understanding, then the question sank in. "Wait, are you serious?" Sorry. It's just, I had nothing to do with this. I was just, here. By accident." Okay, just saying," the doctor replied in a more peaceful tone, checking Kevin's pulse. "Although, if it was about you. I mean, I'd get it." All right, he added quickly, smiling at her growing outrage. "I'm taking your friend now. We'll give him a good rinse, flush out all the nonsense along with everything else. You come visit your sad night tomorrow. Make sure you do." He scribbled something quickly onto a slip of paper and pressed it into her hand. "Is he really going to be okay?" Samantha asked anxiously, deciding to let go of her frustration over the doctor's strange comments. "He'll be fine," the medic smiled. "The guy's tough, a real athlete. I bet his stomach could digest iron nails. But seriously, you did good. Calling us in time, making him, throw it up. You probably saved his life." Completely drained, Samantha sank into a chair. She was still staring blankly ahead when a familiar voice snapped her back to reality, the head coach. At the training base, they used to joke that his voice worked on athletes like a bugle call for cavalry horses. "Well, Blake," he said with a raised brow, "that's one way to say goodbye to your alma mater." He smiled, and Samantha realized she had never seen him look like that before, in all her nearly 7 years of training under him. His smile was soft. Almost shy. "I heard the whole story. Talked to the emergency doc myself. You being here, thank God for that. But seriously now, what were you doing wandering around the boys' dorm, huh?" The coach suddenly seemed to remember the importance of discipline and snapped back to himself. "Oh, Samantha, I'm sorry, my head's just spinning. Can you imagine what could have happened if you hadn't been there, if you hadn't helped, hadn't called for help? What the hell was he thinking? Did he really do this because of you? What is this, some kind of conspiracy?" Samantha exclaimed, hearing for the second time that people thought Kevin had poisoned himself because of her. "Well, I mean, he did follow you around for months. Everybody knows that," the coach said with a shrug. "So now you can't just leave him hanging. He needs support right now. He really can't be alone." "Jason," she said, stunned, "why me?" "Because he doesn't have any friends. You know that. And let's be honest, he probably won't want to see any of us right now. You heard, right? He was officially cut from the team," Jason added, coughing awkwardly and avoiding her eyes. "What about his family?" Samantha pressed. "Don't you think someone should tell them what happened?" "Of course," he nodded. "If I knew how to reach them, I would. But Kevin's from some tiny town, way out in the middle of nowhere. We don't have a single phone number for any of his relatives. So, it's really just you." And listen, Samantha, Jason looked at her, almost pleading, I want to ask you something. Don't tell the other kids what really happened, okay? About what Kevin tried to do. Let's not humiliate him. It would just make him look weak. You agree? I'll say he got dizzy, she replied. Too hot in the room, skipped a meal, fainted. I know these kids, the coach said with a sudden wink. They'll twist that into something way more dramatic. Give it 5 minutes and it'll be, Kevin Monroe almost died, from unrequited love for Samantha Blake. Sounds better, doesn't it? Tragic. Romantic. Let's stick with that version, alright? Samantha gave a tired nod and waved her hand, not even bothering to repeat, what felt like the 100th time that night, that there was never any romance between her and Kevin. Then she stopped. What if it was about her? What if she was the reason he did it? What if she was to blame for him nearly dying? No. That couldn't be. He'd told her himself, he just didn't know what to do anymore after getting cut from the team. That was the reason. It had to be. Right? Or maybe not entirely. Maybe Jason's jokes weren't as far off as she wanted them to be. Either way, she knew one thing for sure, she had to help Kevin. Especially now, knowing how completely alone he really was. No family. No friends. No one nearby. Alright, Jason, she said, looking him straight in the eye. But I need a favor. Can you sneak me out of the base? I don't want to answer any questions. And I'm just, exhausted. Of course. I'll bring the car around to the back entrance. Climb into the back seat, no one will see you there. He turned to leave, then paused, came back, and gently wrapped his arms around her shoulders. Thank you, Samantha. For everything. The next day, she went to the hospital. Kevin came out to meet her and silently sat down beside her. In less than 24 hours, he looked like he'd lost weight, but strangely, it didn't make him look worse. On the contrary, it gave his appearance a new edge, something leaner, more defined. His face, now sharper and more refined, showed a kind of rugged handsomeness she hadn't noticed before. He actually looked interesting. And now, those unbelievably long eyelashes of his were impossible to miss. God, what's wrong with me? Samantha scolded herself. He nearly died, and I'm sitting here thinking about his lashes. Well, everyone says hi and wishes you a quick recovery, she chirped, lying through her teeth. Everyone says hi to me? Kevin gave a lopsided smirk. Come on, Samantha. I'm sure they're all just talking about what a pathetic crybaby Monroe turned out to be. Like some delicate little girl, first sign of trouble and I go off the rails. Oh, stop, she laughed. You think people don't have anything better to talk about? Yesterday the girls from our team stole all the relay guys' sneakers and hung them in a tree. That was the big event. Everyone nearly died laughing. Yeah, dumb, I know, but it was hilarious. And don't worry about yourself. Jason told everyone you had some sudden oxygen deficiency or something. Your reputation's totally intact. So just focus on getting better, alright? What for? Kevin muttered darkly. Oh, not this again, Samantha groaned. What do you mean, what for? I mean it, he said, voice low. I've got nowhere to go, Samantha. Sport was all I had. I worked like a dog. No, like 2 dogs. Everyone knows it, everyone saw it, right? He looked at her suddenly, his eyes desperate. Training was my life, going from one practice to the next. That's it. Well, Kevin, she said gently, not everyone's meant to be an Olympic champ. I never aimed for that, he snapped. I'm not stupid, I knew my ceiling. Knew I'd never get past it. You made it to master of sport. Me? I'm a nobody. It's like I never even existed on that track. 10 years, Samantha. 10 years, 9 hours a day. He fell silent, the weight of it all pressing down between them. Kevin, she finally said, breaking the silence, maybe you do need a break. From sports. From everything. Just go home for a while. Rest. Sleep in. Watch some TV or something. She instantly regretted it, clapping a hand to her mouth, but it was too late. There's no place on earth where a TV would work for me, he said with a bitter chuckle. I come from the middle of nowhere, Samantha. Like, real nowhere. In the winter, snow buries the front door so deep, you can't leave the house until someone digs you out. In the summer, open your mouth outside and it fills with mosquitoes and gnats. Basically, paradise. And the queen of that paradise? Clarissa. My older sister. A world-class piece of work. When she sent me off to that sports boarding school at 10, I think she nearly passed out from happiness. I've seen her maybe 2 or 3 times since. That's my loving family. Can you imagine how thrilled she'll be when I show up at her doorstep again? Samantha sat in silence, feeling defeated. She couldn't think of a single comforting thing left to say. So now I've got nothing, no job, no home, no future, Kevin muttered and waved his hand hopelessly. Come on, Samantha said, none of us have a career yet. You could apply somewhere, study something. With my grades? Kevin scoffed. I couldn't even study after practice, nothing stuck. At all, you get me? And I'm not cut out for it. I don't have the energy or the patience. Yeah, energy. What are you laughing at? He asked, smiling involuntarily as Samantha chuckled. Yeah, imagine that. I can deadlift 250 pounds no problem, but I can't hold on to a book. That's it, Samantha said, suddenly standing up and clapping her hands together. Enough whining. You're an athlete, learn to take a hit. Poor thing, poor sad little boy. They took away your precious iron shot. Big deal. It's not the end of the world. Look, if you want, I'll help you. I don't know how yet, but we'll figure it out. You. Kevin blinked. You want to help me? You barely noticed I existed all these years. Where's this charity coming from? You think just because you saved me now you're responsible for me or something? Forget it. I'll deal with it on my own. Now, if there was ever a guaranteed way to get Samantha Blake seriously invested in something, it was to tell her not to do it. Naturally, that's exactly what happened. You'll deal with it? Really? I'd love to see how, she said, crossing her arms. You don't want to go back home, got it? That means you need a place to stay. And a job. Oh, is that all? Kevin replied dryly, raising an eyebrow. You'll have them, Samantha nodded confidently. All right, focus on getting better. I'll call you tomorrow. Bye. Samantha. She had already turned and started walking toward the exit, but stopped at his voice and looked back. Are you really coming tomorrow? You're not lying to me, right? He stared at her, unblinking, as if trying to tie her to an unspoken promise. Something in his look made her shiver a little. Yes, I'll come. I said I would, she called over her shoulder, and then ran off. 1 month later, Kevin Monroe was working as a courier for Samantha's father's company. Rumor had it, based on how much he was being paid, that he was basically doing the work of 3 people. He lived in a small apartment Samantha found for him through friends, and not before negotiating the rent down significantly. After solving his financial issues, she threw herself into saving him from loneliness and despair just as passionately. And eventually, after a couple of years of friendship, Samantha said yes when Kevin asked her to marry him. You've lost your mind, exclaimed Abby, her close friend and former teammate, still one of the few people from the sports world Samantha kept in touch with. What do you want with that hermit? You're going to die of boredom with him. Okay, sure, he's changed lately. Smiles sometimes, even. And yeah, everyone says he's a different person now. But come on, that's just surface level. Deep down, he's still the same jealous, bitter liar. And how exactly do you know all that? Samantha shot back, throwing her hands up. I just know, Abby said. Why do you think he never had real friends on the team? Not even one close buddy. Why do you think he almost always had a dorm room to himself? Did that never make you wonder? And you're not the least bit ashamed of saying stuff like that about someone? Samantha shot back. We were kids back then. Who didn't lie or get jealous? I mean, I was dying of envy when you won the junior championship. And you lied to me for half a year about making out with Liam. Did that ruin our friendship? I'm trying to have a serious conversation here, Abby sighed, throwing up her hands. Look, I get it, you're grateful. I mean, for what happened back then. But this? This is too much. For what? Samantha blinked, confused. What are you even talking about? Forget it, Abby said quickly. Let's not drag up the past. But you know what they say, smart people learn from others' mistakes. The rest, well, they learn the hard way. She shook her head. Well then I guess I'm one of the dumb ones, Samantha replied flatly, putting an end to the bitter, messy conversation. She married Kevin, and they moved into a beautiful apartment that her father had gifted her for her 20th birthday. Samantha finished college, got a job, and tried, really tried, to live the life of a happy person. But something strange started happening. Her friends began to drift away. Calls came less often. Even Abby, faithful, loyal Abby, started dodging visits, always with some excuse. And eventually, she stopped inviting Samantha anywhere at all. Well, fine, Samantha thought stubbornly. If that's what friendship means to them. They all believed those stupid things they used to say about Kevin. That's on them. But soon, all of that faded into the background, because Mia was born. And then her marriage began to fall apart. Kevin started drinking. And not just occasionally, he drank more and more. Samantha went through every level of hell that loyal, loving wives of alcoholics know too well. She tried everything. She begged, reasoned, fought, pleaded. Tried to help him. Heal him. Pull him back from the edge. But it was like hitting a wall. Kevin's grim, brooding refusal to change never cracked. As if, in destroying himself, he was taking revenge on the world. On her, too. In the end, it ended the only way it probably could. Kevin poisoned himself with something so toxic not even his former athlete's body could handle it. He slipped into a coma, and died a few days later. Oh my God, Samantha. Abby cried, horrified, when she finally showed up for the funeral. Do you even know what people were saying all these years? Kevin told everyone that he saved you, that you tried to kill yourself when you got cut from the team, and he was the one who called the ambulance. Can you believe that? And then, when he started drinking, he went around begging people for help. Told them he used to work like a dog to support you, that he bought you that apartment, and you kicked him out like trash. And you believed him? Samantha whispered. Did they all believe him? I'm so sorry, Samantha. Abby threw her arms around her. I'm sorry. We're all idiots. Please forgive me. All of it, every memory, funny and bitter, warm and painful, sweet and terrifying, rushed through Samantha's mind in the half hour it took to walk to the store and back for groceries and medicine for sick little Mia. The memories raced through her just as quickly and effortlessly as she once used to run, long, tanned legs flying over the track like they were made for nothing else. After buying everything she needed, and a few extra treats for Mia and herself, as usual, Samantha returned to her building. While she'd been out, a small moving truck had parked outside. Despite the biting wind and occasional flurries, two men were unloading bags and boxes with surprising energy. Samantha barely glanced at them as she walked through the entrance. One of the movers, struggling with a mattress that looked bigger than he was and tied up with rope, caught up to her at the door. Shouting, "Watch out," he rushed past, nearly pinning her to the wall. When she reached her floor, she suddenly realized that most of those boxes and bags had ended up right outside her apartment, piled high on the landing, blocking the way to her door. But what truly stopped her in her tracks was the tall, heavy-set woman furiously leaning on her doorbell, holding the button down like her life depended on it. "Excuse me, I think you've got the wrong place," Samantha said cautiously. The woman slowly turned around, all of her, not just her head. She pivoted with the full weight of her formidable body. She gave Samantha a hard stare from beneath thick brows that struck her as oddly familiar. In fact, even though Samantha was sure she'd never seen this woman before in her life, something about her felt familiar. "So, you finally showed up," the stranger said, starting the conversation with surprising boldness. She exhaled loudly, like she was trying to cool off her sweat-shiny face all at once, then planted one hand firmly on her wide hip. Her other hand stayed glued to the doorbell button. "Where exactly have you been wandering around since this morning, huh?" she demanded. There was something about her loud, sharp voice, so full of unshakable authority, that made it feel like every question she asked demanded an immediate answer. Caught off guard, Samantha almost began explaining that she had gone to the pharmacy and grocery store because Mia had suddenly fallen ill and they were out of everything, but she caught herself just in time. "Excuse me," she said instead, straightening up, "but why shouldn't I be out in the morning if I need to be?" Samantha had decided to stand her ground. "And who exactly are you? And would you please stop pressing the doorbell now that I'm clearly here?" The woman finally removed her finger from the poor button and, now with both hands free, planted them on her enormous waist. She tossed her curly, chestnut-red dyed hair with theatrical flair and said, "Who am I? I'm the owner of this apartment. And you, sweetheart, would be smart not to talk to me like that, because you'll need somewhere to sleep tonight." "You? The owner? Of this apartment?" Samantha pointed directly at her own front door. "That's funny. Because if you are, then who exactly am I?" "You?" the woman snorted. "You shameless little thing. You're squatting here, that's what. Living here without any legal right. Oh, and you do have legal rights, I suppose." Despite how absurd and surreal the whole situation felt, Samantha was suddenly filled with a strange sense of calm, and even a flicker of excitement. The same feeling she used to get right before a big race. And whenever she felt that, it usually meant one thing: she was about to win. "I do," the woman snapped. "I'm the sole heir. This apartment legally belongs to me." The woman pulled out a large handkerchief and wiped her sweaty face with sweeping gestures, smearing her bright orange lipstick in the process. "And may I ask whose heir you claim to be?" Samantha asked calmly. "So you're going to play dumb till the end, huh?" The woman narrowed her eyes. "I knew you'd be trouble. I felt it in my bones. Bury your husband quietly and then hide out here like no one's going to remember about the apartment. Is that the plan? You think I'm an idiot? Well, tough luck, sweetheart. You're not getting away with anything." Wait, Samantha frowned in confusion. "What does Kevin have to do with this?" "What does Kevin have to do with it?" the woman snapped. "I'm his sister. Clarissa Monroe. His only relative. Closest family. Which means everything he owned comes to me. And I'll decide what, if anything, you get." "Oh, thank you so much," Samantha said with a polite smile. "I was getting worried you wouldn't leave me anything at all." That clearly wasn't the response Clarissa had expected. She'd come ready for a full-on fight and now looked slightly thrown off. "You mean, you agree?" she asked, stunned. "Well, what choice do I have?" Samantha nodded toward the mountain of boxes. "Looks like you've already moved in." "Well, yeah. I figured, since I was coming anyway, might as well bring some stuff. No point in making 10 trips back and forth, Clarissa said matter-of-factly, her tone suddenly much more domestic. Of course, Samantha nodded, as if it all made perfect sense. Wait a second, what are you trying to pull? Clarissa snapped, catching herself. Hand over the keys. I'll open the door myself. Absolutely. But first, let me go get the neighbors. You wouldn't want to celebrate your move-in all alone, would you? And it's always good to get to know the people you'll be living next to. That way, if someone doesn't suit you, you can kick them out right away, Samantha said sweetly, pulling out her phone and knocking on the apartment next door. Good morning, Samantha, said the neighbor, Ella, opening the door with a smile. It's you. I was just wondering what all that noise on the landing was. I even told Jack we should check. Morning, Ella. Is Jack home? Great. Could you ask him to come out for a moment, please? Samantha gave her an encouraging smile as Ella quickly took in the pile of bags and the large, fuming woman standing nearby. What kind of circus are you putting on here? Clarissa growled, inhaling sharply. At that moment, she looked less like a woman and more like a raging bull, or maybe a furious cow about to charge. The circus is yours, Samantha replied sweetly. I'm just gathering the audience. Then she lifted her phone. Hello? Police? Officer? Oh, Tyler. Hey, it's Blake from Building 18. Can you come to my apartment right now? Yes, it's important. I'm being evicted, apparently. Yup. No, I'm completely serious. You'll see when you get here. Things are lively. Yep, thanks. We'll be waiting. To my apartment, not yours, Clarissa barked, clearly trying to reassert dominance. Let the officer come, that's fine. But you're making a mistake. I really was going to be fair with you. You're Kevin's wife, after all. You've got a kid. But if this is how you want to play it. Samantha, what's going on? From the neighboring apartment, a slim, older man stepped out onto the landing, zipping up his jacket as he came. It's all fine, Jack, don't worry, Samantha said quickly. I just want to ask you and your wife to be, well, witnesses, I guess. A relative of mine showed up. Judging by the number of boxes, she's doing quite well for herself. See all that? She's planning to move it into my apartment. Or, as she puts it, her apartment. I don't understand, Jack said, glancing back and forth between Samantha and Clarissa in confusion. Neither do I, honestly, Samantha replied. That's why I'm just asking you to stay here until the police arrive. Just in case this dear relative of mine tries to claim I made her giant mattress disappear or something. Jack looked carefully at the massive, rolled-up striped mattress, then suddenly burst out laughing. Samantha, come on, that thing won't even fit through your door, he said through a chuckle, clearly picturing her trying to wrestle the enormous thing into her apartment. Clarissa, seeing that she was being completely ignored, and worse, laughed at, steeled herself. She marched forward, chest puffed and lungs filled, clearly ready to launch into a furious monologue. But before she could unleash it, a police officer appeared at the top of the stairs. Good morning, he greeted them. Can someone tell me what's going on here? There's a crime going on, that's what. Clarissa barked. This is my apartment, well, almost mine. And she jabbed a finger at Samantha, has been living here illegally. Really? The officer said, raising an eyebrow. Samantha's been living here illegally for, what, 10 years? And we're only now meeting the rightful owner for the first time. That's interesting. You know what? Spare me the sarcasm. The fact is, this apartment belonged to my brother Kevin. He told me more than once that he bought it with his own blood, sweat, and tears. And then she showed up, claimed to be his wife. Well, now he's dead, which makes me his heir. And by the way, someone should really look into how poor Kevin died. She then let out what was presumably meant to be a sob but came out sounding more like a cow in distress. Maybe she poisoned him. Yeah, maybe she drove him to his death just to get the apartment. I always suspected something was off. His voice sounded so weak the last time we spoke. I think he called me to say goodbye. Poor Kevin. Madame Monroe propped her head up with one hand and put on her best, tragic widow, face. Though try as she might, she couldn't squeeze out a single tear, which would have really helped her performance. You know, Samantha, said a suddenly animated Jack, the neighbor Samantha had almost forgotten was still there, thank you for calling us over. Our lives are so dull, and this is pure theater. No one's gonna believe it when we tell them. Whose apartment is this? The officer asked directly, locking eyes with Samantha. Mine, she said firmly. My dad bought it a long time ago, even before I married Kevin Monroe. And it's registered in my name. And of course, you have documents to prove that, the officer said, more as a statement than a question. Of course I do, Samantha replied with a shrug. Fake. Clarissa roared. I could bring you 100 of those fake papers if you want. Oh really? The officer raised an eyebrow, clearly intrigued. Clarissa immediately fell silent, flustered. All right then, the officer said. Samantha, grab your paperwork and come with me to the station. We'll sort everything out there. But my things. Clarissa suddenly cried out, realizing her plan was falling apart. What about my stuff? It'll get stolen. Look around, it's clearly a criminal building. Full of scammers. And the police are covering for them. Well, bringing all your stuff this early was maybe a little premature, Officer Tyler smirked. And as for insulting a law enforcement officer on duty, we'll be having a separate conversation about that. Clarissa realized she'd crossed a line. She shot a venomous glare at the officer, grabbed 2 of the closest bags, and began trudging down the stairs, huffing under their weight. Thank you, Samantha said, holding out her hand to the officer. I really appreciate it. I mean, I didn't actually do much, Tyler admitted, suddenly a little bashful. Honestly, it looks like you handled it just fine on your own. But if you're feeling grateful, maybe, he glanced toward the neighbor's door, which had discreetly closed, maybe you'd let me buy you a cup of coffee. Or, well, sorry, that's probably a bit forward. I haven't even had breakfast. Of course, Samantha said, smiling. Oh, but actually, I don't have coffee. And we only have green tea. But it's really good, I promise, she added quickly. I love green tea, Tyler said softly, his eyes lighting up as he looked at her.